Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm a little behind on writing this week. It's been a busy week. Sometimes life intrudes into your writing schedule. I'll catch up next week, I guess. Let's begin. Chapter 16, Mitch's Point of View. This is for Outed. We're almost to the end. The hard part about riding a longboard to work, I had more time to think. I saved on gas, but I had more time to brood and be terrified. What would I even say to anybody? I wore Jared's choices for work clothes, khaki shorts, a light green tee, and my pride hat to cover the roots. Some future paycheck, I needed to get my hair dyed. Mrs. Parker had braided the hair because I had trouble with the cast, and off I went with the lime green backpack and the cast in a black sling. Perhaps no one would notice me. After sneaking in, I crept to the break room. No one was there. I stashed my board and backpack and helmet in the usual place, clocked in, and put on one of the beige service aprons that tied around the neck and wrapped around the waist. I usually never wore them, but today I had a purpose. I tucked my sling and cast inside the apron to keep them steady. The apron offered more support than just the sling alone. I grabbed a cart of discards that needed to be returned to the shelves and got to work. And then the weird thing happened. "Do you work here?" a middle-aged woman asked as I placed a pack of all-natural pasta back on the shelf. "I do, ma'am," I said. "Can I help you?" "Do you know where the all-natural peanut butter is?" "I do. Follow me, please," I said and led the way. Nobody usually bothered me. They stayed away from the guy in black. Today, though, every 5 minutes people kept asking me where to find things, and I shrugged my shoulders and showed them. Then came time for my morning glucose check. I walked back to the break room, made the check, recorded the results in my new notebook, and got back to work. I had almost finished the cart when someone came up behind me. "You're the new employee?" Mrs. Harding said, a touch of disbelief in her voice. I turned around. Mrs. Harding grimaced when she saw the bruising, the cut, and the careful way I tucked the cast into the apron. "No, Mrs. Harding," I said. "You must be thinking of someone else." She frowned. "It doesn't look any better, Mitch." "Sorry, ma'am. It doesn't feel much better either," I said. "Thanks for the flowers and the card. I saw them when I finally woke up." "You're welcome. Are you sure you should be back so soon?" I still got to pay bills. I pulled the cast out of the apron and stretched my arm out. "What's this about a new employee? You replacing me or something?" She looped her arm with my right arm and led the way to the front. "We've been hearing stories about our new employee all morning. He's very helpful, knows right where everything is, and no one could figure out who it was because everyone was here. Honestly, I wasn't expecting you back for a few more days." She paused and looked at me. "I took pictures of you at the hospital and showed them around. Told them what your fiancé told me. I'm really sorry this happened." Jared struck again, and it made me smile. "Thanks. But Jared lied about that. We were still figuring things out. But he thought that the hospital would let him stay with me if he told him that." "I think you found a keeper then. Maybe you're not engaged yet, but I bet you will be someday." If she only knew. He is pretty special. "Come on, I'm showing you off." She marched me right up to the front registers and introduced me as the new employee. She didn't let me have time to be nervous because she took me up to Kylie and the others. "Guess who our new employee is," Mrs. Harding said. Kylie took one look at my face and gave me a hug. "Oh my God, Mitch, I'm glad you're safe." I had to tell them the abbreviated version of what had happened, but they knew most of it already. They laughed when they heard that Jared had picked out my clothes. No one seemed to mind that I was gay, but they did want to meet my fiancé. And I explained Jared wasn't and what happened, and Kylie, the head cashier, said, "That's so romantic." At lunch, I prepped the new pen and gave the shot, and while waiting on the microwave, I walked into the employee's bathroom and locked the door. I stared into the mirror, covering the bruises and the butterfly bandage with my hand. With a hat hiding my hair, I looked like a normal person. For a moment, I thought I found a hint of the kid I used to be, peeking out from the pain. After work, I rode to the dojo. I had trained with these guys for a year. Some of them were kids I worked with on Saturday and Sunday. I had just gotten beat up. Karate was supposed to keep that from happening, but not in my case. Jumping off the longboard, I paused at the door and looked in. The early afternoon class had just started. Everybody wore their white gi. A couple of brown belts used the weight set, and a blue belt punched the bag. Sensei Robert sat at his desk, brow furrowed. He always hated accounting. I took a deep breath to find my courage and pushed the door open. Nobody noticed me. I took my shoes and socks off, stowed them with my backpack, and stepped onto the mat. The class turned and stared at me. The brown belts stopped lifting weights and stared at me. The blue belt stopped hitting the punching bag and stared at me. "Hi," I said. I had been with these people on Saturday at the tournament, but right now I felt like an animal in the zoo. "Come see Mitch, the human punching bag." Z broke away from the class and ran over to me. "You okay?" "Getting there," I said. "Thanks for the pin." Z did something completely unexpected. He hugged me. I was worried. Me too. That broke the ice because everybody came over. They had seen the video and pictures, and some of them had been there on Sunday when I came by. "I'm going to show you a couple of moves," one of the brown belts said. "If I had been there," the blue belt said, mimicking a high kick. "Pow!" "Mitch," Sensei Robert said as he came out of his office, "what's the rule about street clothes?" "No street clothes on the mats. Sorry, Sensei," I said. "You need to get changed," Sensei Robert said. "Sorry, sir, the gi didn't survive, and I don't get paid until the end of the month." "Can't have you breaking any rules," he said. "We each donated $1. Got you a new gi," the blue belt said. Sensei Robert tossed a package at me. "Get changed. Today we're talking about opponents with weapons. Hurry back." "Nice hat," Z said as I walked back to the changing rooms. By 7, we had finished. I changed back into my street clothes I had worn at Harding's. I was too terrified by then to notice if the old Mitch was inside me hiding. Jared texted, "I'm on my way." A date. An actual date. An actual blind date. My hands had gotten cold. My knees started shaking, and my shirt felt sweaty. I should have stayed in the hospital. Jared. Operation Blind Date not starting so well. "Unless you cut the sleeve off, I can't get the cast through." Mitch stood shirtless, holding the black long-sleeve button-down shirt I had brought for him. "The pants are fine, I guess, in a beige, khaki, color-bland way." Plan B. I ran out to my car and grabbed the bag of shirts I wanted to take back to the store. "Let's try these." I pulled out the turquoise golf shirt. "No." Mitch shook his head and crossed his arms. "Just no. No way. Never." I pulled out the vintage tee. "No," I said. "Not this." "I like that one," Mitch said. "You can buy it from me later then, but you're not wearing it tonight." "How much for the turquoise?" Z peeked around the corner. "Now there's a man with taste." I told him the price. "Done." Z found his wallet and pulled out some cash. "What's left?" "The best one of all. I even paid full price for it." I pulled the sky blue silk short-sleeve button-down shirt from the bag. "See if you can get your cast through this." "Are you sure about this?" Mitch eyed the shirt as if he were looking at some strange beetle. He probably likes strange beetles. "Trust the clothes whore. He knows what he is doing. Just put the shirt on." Mitch actually smiled. That's been a while in coming. After he put the cast through the sleeve, he wiggled into the rest of it and buttoned it up. It's a little tight around the chest. Too much karate or something, I said. Live with it. Besides, it'll show off your pecs. I need to start karate. You know what the girls would do if I look like you? Mitch straightened the shirt and looked down. Are you sure this is working? It's not me. That's the problem. It really is. It's the old Mitch, not the one who lives in shadows. Says, Mr. I don't wear anything but black. Trust me, I said. I walked up to Mitch and pulled a few hairs free on the left side of his head, adjusted the hat to face backwards. That's to cover your roots. Good, you didn't shave today. It bothered the cheek too much. Ouch. The left side of his face looked awful. I nodded, brushing imaginary lint from Mitch's shoulder. I think we've got it, the bad boy chic look. The what? Mitch said. What do you think, Z? Will he break any hearts tonight? I don't know. The blue on the shirt makes the bruises stand out, Z said, and walked over, holding the turquoise shirt. Dim restaurant, candlelight, put a bag over his head. Maybe. Guys, Mitch said, I don't know about this. Relax, Mitch. It won't be that bad, I laughed. Come on. See you later, Z. Mitch slung his lime green backpack over his shoulder. Is it too late to say no? Once out at the Hyundai, I beeped it, and Mitch climbed in. I stood by the driver's side door, waiting. Jared, Mitch said, you were the one who wanted me to go. Why don't you get in? I gave a sadistic little grin. Time for a little fun and to get Mitch out of his head for a while. Pretend I'm your date. Are you going to keep me waiting out here before you get the door? Nobody does that anymore, Mitch said. You have to make your date feel important, I said, especially if you want any fun later. Come on, practice. I'm not your date. Pretend, I said. Besides, I have the keys. Mitch scowled. You're enjoying this way too much to be healthy. I'm still getting even. Mitch climbed out, walked around to my door, and with exaggerated politeness, opened it. May I help you with your door, sir? Better. I stepped in and sat down. We'll work on that. Mitch carefully shut the door and walked around to the passenger side, muttering, Why don't we stop off at the florist and I'll buy you a corsage? Good idea. We've got time. I drove over a couple of blocks to the nearest floor. Go buy something classy. You've got to be kidding, Mitch said. Better hurry, I said. You don't want to be late. As soon as Mitch left, I pulled out my phone and sent a text. We'll be there soon. Mitch. What was Jared doing? Didn't he realize I didn't go out to restaurants for a reason? Jared hadn't been paying attention. I wasn't ready for this, not after last weekend. Maybe not ever. I stood in line at the florist and stared at some random display of roses. Today had been too much. Maybe Mrs. Harding had been right, and I should have taken a couple days off. After work, I went to karate, and now a blind date. When was the last time I had even been on a date? Probably with Michaela. Homecoming or prom, but it was all an act. Maybe I'd never been on a real date before, even with Raoul or Edmund. It was all sneaking around after school, keeping Bailey unaware. No real dating. Jared meant well, maybe. Or was it his sense of humor again? What would anyone see in me now? Bruised face, scarred cheek, and a broken arm. At least my left eye was open again, and the swelling had gone down. There was a mirror behind the display showing all the happy people in the shop, and a clerk who smiled too much. Happy flowers, happy, normal people. What was I doing here? When had I been happy or normal? I pretended to look at various displays until it was only me in the shop and the clerk who smiled too much. It was only for one night. Let Jared have his little fun if that's what it took to be okay with him again. But a blind double date? It was probably some old man with grabby hands, or some stuck-on-himself prima donna, or maybe some college guy Jared had found at the dive, covered in zits with oily hair and a mole on his chin the size of Mount Vesuvius, and a potbelly named Rufus, and he had no teeth and smelled like fish. No, it was more likely a sister-brother combo. Jared would date and bed the sister, while me and some strange guy would attempt small talk. That's how Jared would get even. My neck tensed. Happy face, pretend I'm happy, pretend I'm normal. It's just my blood sugar going weird or something. Finally, it was my turn with the clerk who smiled too much. Do you have any corsages? I asked. She looked at my face. Her smile wilted. Then she forced it back on. One bright side, I got to sort of go on a date with Jared. Jared. This is hilarious. We arrived at the Butte Steakhouse and pulled into a full parking lot. The sweet sounds of country music filled the air. Mitch opened the car door, like a gentleman, offered his hand so I could get out in style. Mitch even opened the door to the restaurant, unprompted, letting me go ahead of him. I think you'll like it here, I said. It's one of my favorite places. I come here 2-3 times a month. Oh, you're forgetting something. Okay, Mitch sighed, taking the corsage box in his left hand. I got the car. I got the door. Corsage. Dating is a nightmare. What did I forget? You take your date's arm and guide your date to a seat. You're not the date. I haven't even met him yet. It's a him, right? Just remember, I said, I expect full details later tonight. We'll talk for hours. Jared wrinkled his nose and chuckled. You'll tell me everything. Besides, you'll be so messed up I could actually win you at chess. I'll even get the old one out and beat you hands down. Your table is right this way, the hostess said, trying not to stare at Mitch's face. Maybe the paper bag idea was a good idea. The others are waiting for you. Arm, I ordered. At a distant table, a waiter leaned over and delivered an order to a woman. Raoul, Mitch's ex, the French kisser. When did he start working here? Can't life ever be simple? I have to steer Mitch clear of him for my own sanity. Mitch shook his head and looped his right arm with my left. Give me a hint. Have I met this person before? Yes. Good. Mitch never noticed Raoul. Have I dated this person before? Mitch said. I said, by your own admission, they weren't dates, exactly. Wes? No. Edmund? No, I said. Raoul? No, most definitely not. Wait a second. Am I jealous of Mitch's high school boyfriend? Mitch paused and looked around the room. I don't understand. Michaela is the only other person, but... Perfect. He's forgotten the weekend for a minute. This way, I said. I led the way to a table tucked in the back. Michaela and Josh were already seated and rose as we approached. You look alive tonight, Josh said. Welcome back, Michaela said and gave Mitch a hug. You should wear that color more often. You look great in it. You have the stupidest look on your face, Josh said. Jared had me believing this was a blind double date, Mitch said, and I fell for it. I leaned in close and came in for the kill. It is, foster brother. I'm your date. Eyebrows shot up, jaw dropped, eyes widened. The look that crossed Mitch's face was priceless. Operation Blind Date working as planned.